Welcome to Sync Up, a show about OneDrive. We are your hosts, Ankita Kirti and Jason Moore. I'm Ankita Kirti, Product Manager on the OneDrive team.
And I'm Jason Moore, Director of Program Management for OneDrive. This show will take you behind the scenes of OneDrive, shedding light on how OneDrive connects you to all your files in Microsoft 365 so you can share and work together from anywhere while protecting your work from accidental loss and malicious attacks.
Today, we are really excited to have Corey Kincaid on the show with us.
So don't go away. We got another great show today.
Yeah! For most people, remote work, whether it's been part-time or full-time, is the new way of working. That's why over 115 million daily users rely on Microsoft Teams to connect and collaborate. And also why Teams was recognized as a leader in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for Unified Communications as a Service. So today, we are going to discuss how OneDrive and Teams bring value to your day-to-day collaboration, the trends we have seen in this past year with internal and external sharing, and the guidance we've shared with our customers in order to manage and maintain Teams and OneDrive. Now I'm going to give it over to Jason to introduce our guest today.
Our guest today is Corey Kincaid. He's a customer success manager for Modern Work, and he helps advise customers on how to use technologies like Teams and OneDrive to improve their businesses. Corey, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Jason. I'm glad to be here.
Corey, we know Teams has been very critical in digital transformation, and specifically with the last year with remote work. We've seen the surge, we've seen the amazing feedback, and we've also felt overwhelmed with how Teams has been so important for a lot of our customers. What can you share about its impact among your customers in the past year due to growth of this remote work?
Yeah, no, it's been an enormous impact, really, more so than I would have expected in a variety of different ways. But it's also been a bit of an inspiring impact. Naturally, in this case, the catalyst for such a rapid transformation was not a good thing. The spread of COVID-19 around the planet obviously disrupted a lot of ways that people work. But in particular, what we saw was really a very rapid acceleration of kind of trends that were already going on within customers. So some customers, I think, not only were taken by surprise by the need to move so quickly, but they surprised themselves. They moved at paces that they didn't think were possible. So I had customers who had planned to slowly increase the amount of remote work that they allowed their employees to do over a period of time, or maybe were planning and transitioning to Microsoft Teams. But they accelerated those very rapidly. Timelines that were 6 months or 12 months suddenly became, 6 weeks, or we need to do it right now. And so in that context, there was a really rapid speed of change that everyone had to absorb within those different companies and within those organizations. And not only did that happen at an organizational level, but it also really happened at an individual level. And so suddenly what it meant to be working remote changed, right? That separation between your personal life and your work life wasn't there anymore. The kids were there, the dogs were there, the in-laws were there. Everyone was trying to do everything. And so the technology of Teams, what it really allowed, I think, folks to do was to not only survive, right? Be able to continue to do the critical types of work that they needed as part of their day-to-day job. But it also allowed them to thrive in different ways. It allowed them to better balance what was going on at home with what needed to happen at work. And so the different features that came out in that period of time, and we've continued to release, have really decreased the kind of friction, I think, between some of those challenges, and increased the ability for people to find a new way to be successful. I had one customer, for example, who made a very rapid move to Teams, and their chief marketing officer had remarked that she was used to managing a global organization already, right? She had people who were scattered around the globe. Afterwards, and after they started using Teams and connecting on Teams on a regular basis, she actually felt closer and spent more time and more engagement with people around the world that she didn't see or interact with as much as the people who had been physically adjacent to her before. So there's these hidden silver linings to what was a very challenging situation. And I feel like the technology and the approach that Microsoft has taken to the technology of Teams and other parts of Microsoft 365 really have supported that transition.
That's a really great way to frame it. And I love the notion of going from surviving to thriving in that, Corey, because I really appreciate how much, so much was thrust upon people in the last year or so. And the need to move kind of beyond just the reactionary state has been so critical. Of course, selfishly, we've been kind of in the same mode for OneDrive, kind of riding along with this incredible explosion of growth with Teams and OneDrive usage and integration around there. I think it's something like 10 times the growth that we'd seen previously. I was curious, do you have specifics or scenarios or examples you could share about how people are leveraging that? Like, how are customers really adopting that files productivity within the context of Teams?
I would say it's automatically. No, what I mean by that, I jest a bit, but what I mean is that the Teams interface makes it very easy to allow file sharing and file collaboration to occur. So it's designed in a way that is intuitive, and it's a kind of a natural extension of what that human interaction point is. And so some of the things that I observed is that it got less important to the individual person, whether or not they were using OneDrive or whether or not they were using SharePoint or whether they were using Teams. It still remained very important to the IT administrators, right? IT administrators want to make sure that those files are in the right place and have the right settings, the right protections. But the beauty of Teams is really that it helps people not have to worry about wait, where do I, or where was that, or how do I find that? So in that context, really what I saw is that as organizations, because of a variety of reasons, started to ramp up their usage of Teams, that oftentimes centered first on the human connection part around the chat or around the meeting or that type of collaboration experience. But the beauty is that the file portion of it is just right there at the same time. And so what I think we saw is that rather than people having to segment the way they thought, and they had to go look at one structure to find their conversations that were in email, and they had to go look at a different structure around how content was organized in one place, it was brought together more seamlessly. And so when I say automagically, I think what happened is that the Teams product and the Teams experience helped people be able to take their needs to share files and content and have it automatically or automagically, right, be in the right place, be with the right settings. And that's one reason why people, I think, have kind of continued to grow and expand their usage of OneDrive in combination with this transition.
Oh, that's awesome. I love you kind of framed all that within Teams as this collaborative hub. And that's one of the things that I'm most excited about in that. Can you talk a little bit about what are the experiences in particular that people are taking advantage of that's really around enabling that collaboration or scenarios that lead into that?
So one of the things I think that has really stood out is how that Teams experience has helped with the when to use what conversation. So we've always had IT administrators and content managers and organizations trying to help encourage their employees to make the right decisions around where to store files and content. And back in the day, that was, hey, put them on the file server because that's better than having them on the desktop or on the machine, or hey, now get those into the cloud. However, what oftentimes would happen in organizations is people would constantly require coaching. Hey, you really shouldn't have put that on the SharePoint site. That's really kind of private between you and this other person. You need to go store that somewhere else. Or hey, you really shouldn't put this on OneDrive because it's really for everybody. Why don't you move that to SharePoint? Part of that is just because as human beings, it takes us time to internalize different ways of working. But Teams has helped with that because now all of a sudden, when you're in a chat and you go to share a file, it automatically puts it in OneDrive. If you are in a Teams environment and you use the Files tab in a channel where you're already there working with other colleagues, it automatically goes and puts the file in SharePoint. So all of a sudden, the volume, the frequency in which administrators, support personnel, help desks, or even frankly, the power users within a team or a department have to sort through those questions kind of goes away. It's greatly reduced. And so in that context, I think Teams has really helped people into better file management practices and just encourages a more healthy approach to file management. And then at the same time, it has allowed IT departments to provide a new, intuitive, modern experience, right, in the form of Teams to their employees, which is great. That's what we want. That's the whole point. But at the same time, they didn't have to sacrifice all of the work that they had put into setting up their file management policies and setting up their file management structures. They didn't have to worry about the fact that it's one more place that they've got to go secure. The same things that a individual using Teams loves about how they just go to it and the back end takes care of itself for the most part. Same thing that IT administrators love about it. They can provide a new front end and new experiences while maintaining that kind of control and structure and approach that's so important in today's world.
I love that you brought that up, Corey, because I think it's one of the things that's so magical about it is that pairing of this experience that by default helps people do the right things and doesn't require, a bunch of training and then rebuilding new habits. It just works as part of that process. And at the same time, it actually enables the IT admin out there, the person worried about governance and compliance, who's got to stress about making sure the right policies for the right group. Might be some group is having a very, very protected set of conversations that need different requirements around the default security settings. All of those things get to happen in such a natural and fluid way, and kind of everybody gets both sides of that. And I think that's just a really awesome, powerful thing about the combination of Teams here with OneDrive and SharePoint. Ankita, I think you had a question to follow up on as well.
Yes, and you guys have set me up for all my questions, so that's a great thing for me. And a little segue into Corey. I think to some extent you've already answered this, but in your experiences with the customers, what guidance do you share with them to kind of manage and maintain security around collaboration with Teams and OneDrive for their organization?
That's a question that I think is perennially associated with files and with storage and with information. How do we make sure that we protect the item while at the same time allowing it to be shared in the right way, in the right context? Because the item in a vacuum by itself that no one can get to or is really difficult to get to is very difficult to get value out of as your business. And the reverse is also true. If you just let your files and your content be out there, you probably aren't going to fare well as a business. So how do you balance that need between collaboration and access and capability and low friction on an individual basis with how do you balance the need for security? And frankly, this is the area where I think almost more than any other IT perspective or IT-centered focus point is where Microsoft really excels, because everything we do comes from a place where we are asking the security questions when we roll out a feature, when we roll out an experience. So in that context, when I have this conversation with customers, I say, listen, remember, you're in the bubble, meaning Microsoft 365 as a whole is an ecosystem, and you want to think about and focus on securing content on common attributes, if you will, within that overall bubble. You as an IT department need to and should worry a little bit less around where each individual person interacts with a piece of content and more concerned with, hey, is the system aware of what that content is, and does it protect it or manage it or locate it or do whatever needs to be done with it in the right way? And so in that context, what I stress with IT departments, especially when they are understandably a bit nervous about rolling out a new technology or making a new experience available, is to say, listen, we may talk to the end user, right? The language that we use to engage and inspire an end user might be one thing, but don't forget, as an IT person, you have these controls. You have one consolidated administrative center in Microsoft 365, which gives you a complete picture of everything that's going on in your world. So if you decide that you need to have a certain, sensitivity label structure, or you need to respond to your legal department coming and saying, hey, listen, we need to put a legal hold on XYZ type of materials, or we need to run an e-discovery operation on doing this. You can trust that as Microsoft continues to expand and iterate and improve the feature sets and the experiences, that we are keeping that consolidated security story in mind. And so they kind of can get the best of those both worlds. They don't have to redo the work over and over and over like they do with point solutions. They can just do it once, and then they can make sure that not only are they feeling more confident in their security, but it's also important, I think, for them to remember how much that increases or improves the security training and the orientation that they need to provide to their users. That's going to stick so much better when the experience and the user interface and all those things are similar. So, for example, One of the things that I'm excited about is that unification of the file share experience within Teams, similar to what we see in OneDrive and in SharePoint today. So again, if not only from a policy management point of view, that the IT administrator or the security and compliance administrator can have confidence that, hey, if we've put specific restrictions on what type of sharing is acceptable or what kind of who things can be shared with, they can have the confidence that not only will the technology enforce that, but they also can have the confidence that when they educate their employees, say, hey, when you get this screen and this pop-up and you select how you want the link to function and here's what your options are available, they don't have to go retrain separately for it in SharePoint and in OneDrive and in Teams. That integrated kind of cohesive story is powerful, not just in terms of security, but also in terms of the operational cost and burden on IT and legal and compliance organizations to try to build those better behaviors into their employees that they will return to habitually. I think it's features like that, and it's that mindset around a unified experience and that mindset around security always being at the forefront of the discussion is a real differentiator for Microsoft and for our tool sets in this space.
That is so well put. I mean, amazingly answered. And yeah, that is our strong suit, right? The whole One Microsoft story. And it's not only for IT, it's also for end users, where end users can have the same experience as you mentioned, be it if they are in Teams or if they are in Office or if they are in OneDrive or SharePoint, if they are working from desktop or mobile or web browser, it's all unified, it's all the same. And similarly for our amazing admins, you put one restriction one where if you have say, for example, restricted anyone links in SharePoint and a OneDrive, that would continue if you are sharing from within Office or if you're sharing from within Teams. As Corey mentioned, no extra change management or training. It's that one Microsoft offering, story, tool, and the confidence that we give to our customers. It's amazingly well put. Jason?
Yeah, and I totally agreed, Ankita. And I think, something that is so often overlooked when people kind of just look at one part of the puzzle is understanding how these things all glue together, how they compose in a way that's coherent, in a way that's sensible for both the real human beings at the end of the day who have a job to do or a school classroom to go learn in or whatever it is. For them, that coherency and sensibility and is just so critical and powerful in a way that doesn't frustrate. But at the same time, exactly like you said, on the admin side and the people who maybe have to take a step back and have this broader view across all these pieces, it composes together in a just incredibly coherent way. That means that it doesn't become, getting a master's degree in 15 different systems and 15 different programs in order to ensure something like this data is well protected. It meets the compliance or the, fiduciary duties that we may have as an organization. I think that's a really well said thing. And it truly is one of the things that differentiates.
One of the things that I've oftentimes shared with customers is that when they think about their strategy around security and compliance and file organization even and structure, Microsoft has been pushing that story forward for a very long time. Even when we first started to encourage, or shall we say discourage, the use of file folders, right, and encourage the retirement of a folder-driven approach and embrace the benefits of metadata, if we think in SharePoint libraries and all these kind of things. Well, now we see the way humans collaborate is, advancing again, right? The way we interact and work is advancing again. And so what role that technology can play among our customers is it can help bridge the stuff that the IT department cares about, that the legal department cares about, that they want to care about because that's probably their passion and that's fantastic. But 98% of the employees don't care about, right? They don't want to care about it. And so technology can perform a unique role of bridging those two worlds and those two objectives. You can give the flexibility you want to your employees, the modern experience that they need, and you can give the security and the control that you need. And just know that Microsoft is there with you, lockstep, as the way humans collaborate and interact and share content and share information continues to evolve. I guarantee you the conversation we will have in 5 years is totally different than the one we're having today. We're there, we're the partner, and we can kind of help you make that journey in a safe and a secure way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Corey. This has been really instructive, and I think great to just kind of share your perspective and experience and knowledge on it. Before you go, though, we always have our fun question, kind of learn a little bit more about you and all of us. So our fun question this month is, what is your favorite article of what I call pandemic clothing?
I really don't know what that means, Jason.
Well, I hopefully this is something. I'm not the only person that's been thinking about this, but we've been living and working from home for nearly a year now, and one of the observations I have is it's changed some of my clothing habits, and I thought it'd be really interesting if we all kind of shared what is the thing that's different. Not going into the office every day probably changes what you wear, but being on video calls may also change the way you approach those things. I'm always aware now. A bunch of my shirts are too finely checked or lines on them, and they tend to come across this very moire pattern when I'm on video. So I don't wear any of those shirts when I'm on video.
Interesting.
That kind of thing. It would be something like that might show up. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does.
You want to go first?
Yeah, my wardrobe has now, I think, 10 folds of new sweatpants. I'm always in them. So yes, for video calls, there is sweatpants and a formal shirt, blouse, whatever. I've gone to the limit where me and my few friends, we are in this bubble that we don't meet anyone else, but we meet each other just to have sanity in our lives. And over the past year, for anyone's birthdays, or I think even at New Year, I guess, the dress code, I kind of try to make sure the dress code is like sweatpants. So, and they have hated me for it, because I remember one of my friends, and she's a lovely person. She started with the fact that we'll have just add some fun into our lives, or to these boring lives, but we can't go out. So let's have some party, glam, shimmer clothing for her birthday. And after 2 weeks of nudging indirectly and then very directly, it all became about sweatpants.
Yeah, I'm both not surprised that you were able to effectively do that, Ankita, but I'm also curious. Like, have you, over the course of this, have you developed a sense for like the best sweatpants or the best features of a sweatpant you need for optimal work conditions?
I've not thought about it that deeply, but I think my favorite among all have been, I don't know why, but I've just loved the Gap sweatpants. Like, I've purchased sweatpants from various outlets, but the Gap ones have been my complete favorite. And now I get it, why it's such a rager here in US. And when I bought one here, and my American friend was like, Gap, really? That's what we wear when we were kids. And I was like, I was not a kid here, so let me just wear
No, totally. Okay, I love that answer. Well, Corey, how about you?
Oh, so that's a good question. I feel like I've definitely ebbed and flowed. I've changed a little bit over the course. Like I went full casual very early on, and wasn't doing as much video and just super casual. And I had also recently moved right before the pandemic had hit. And then I don't know, about 4 or 5 months in, I kind of revolted, and I went back to wearing at least up top. I started wearing collared shirts again, mostly just because I was like, I have to have a little bit of self-respect for myself. Well, in case you're wondering, that did not last a long time. Definitely have retired that again. I'm back to the t-shirt road, but I do think it was kind of funny. I was thinking the other day, one of the things that definitely has changed is I was always out and about, even if I wasn't working at the office, or I was on site with a customer, or I would just be working from different, coffee shop or restaurant or an airport or wherever it was. So I was in shoes all the time, and I have definitely changed, and I almost never wear shoes. Now, I always wear socks, but I almost never wear shoes, so much that it kind of feels uncomfortable. I think that maybe my feet have grown like a half size or something, because all my shoes feel really constrained all of a sudden. So that's definitely a change for me. It's definitely been an adjustment. I actually had the experience about 2 or 3 weeks ago. I was cleaning out my closet, and I dusted all of my old work clothes, because they literally all my sport coats and my suit jackets
collected it. Yeah,
right, all those customer facing clothes. Yep, they needed a lint roll, because they have been collecting mothballs for the last year. So
yeah, for a while now. No, I know exactly what you mean by that experience, and it's so funny how these conditions change our perceptions of it. I had just before the pandemic, I had started to get more serious about, because the clothes I wore at work, especially, at Microsoft in product engineering, it's just a little bit more casual. So, jeans kind of were standard for me every day. And And that's the same thing I'd wear on the weekend. And I'd been like, oh, maybe I should get more like leisure wear, something that's like my weekend wear. And so I'd been experimenting. I experimented with a variety of sweatpants. I've never been very comfortable wearing sweatpants. A pair of jeans, that's how I get ready for the day. I know it's serious. I'm putting my jeans on. But I've definitely become more comfortable wearing sweatpants, especially with the camera at the right angle. It looks like maybe I'm a professional. The lack of shoes thing, like I totally get that. There were 2 pairs of shoes that I've been looking forward to get. Every Ignite, for example, I always show up with a new pair of custom OneDrive shoes. And for folks that know, like it's always, a little bit, a number of folks are always curious about what the new shoe is and the style and the design. And it's just a fun little thing for me. But, last year I didn't, and this year I haven't. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I feel like ordering some OneDrive shoes that are custom just so I have them, but I haven't done that. And what's been really interesting is I've become more and more comfortable with, I call it my Mr. Rogers sweater, but like this sweater that I'll put on and off as I'm going about my day, kind of like, okay, it's a bit more formal. I'll take this sweater off, but I kind of have now developed, I have like 2 or 3 of these kind of like jacket sweater things that I'll wear just to be a bit warmer, especially here, we're in the depth of winter in Seattle. And so that's been kind of maybe my go-to for it. But it is fascinating to see. I had to go and dust off a bunch of clothes. Yeah, that's been a really interesting experience. So I really appreciate hearing about all of that because it validates me in a great way. So thank you so much, Corey. Thank you so much, Ankita, on that. And hopefully for folks listening, if you haven't experimented with what your favorite items of clothing and what you might want to shift, this has inspired you to. And if you have, you know that you're part of a growing legion of people who are choosing comfort and utility across those. With that all said, one of the things we always like to kind of close out with, Corey, is sharing where people can find and learn more about you.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. So if you want to find me on LinkedIn, send me a connection request. I'm more than happy to. So just linkedin.com/in/Corey Kincaid. That's CoryKincaid. I'm not necessarily the most exciting poster, but I am always happy to talk about modern work trends if you haven't noticed, or anything else that might cross your mind. Feel free to send me a note. Always happy to make the connection. Thanks for making the time to talk to me today.
It was great to have you, Corey. Really, thanks a lot. Great insights shared. And I'm sure it'll be really helpful to all our listeners.
Thanks again, Corey, for being on Sync Up.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Ankita, I hear this month we're doing something a little bit different for our Culture Corner segment.
Yes, Jason, we are. So this month, instead of picking your brains, I am actually having a conversation with Corey's teammates, Ryan Belkley and Tatiana Castillo. They are customer success managers who take a human-first approach in helping their customers navigate their digital transformation. So along with guiding customers to make the most of their investment in Teams and OneDrive and SharePoint, they are also now taking cautious steps, given the pandemic, to help their customers combat challenges like employee burnout or meeting fatigue. So let's wait and hear what they have to say.
This week's show is brought to you by Microsoft Lists, your smart information tracking app in Microsoft 365. Keeping track of information isn't everyone's job description today. Writing things down works for simple lists, but it can get overwhelming when you need to stay on top of hundreds of items and get others to pay attention and act. Microsoft Lists is a Microsoft 365 app that helps you easily track information and organize your work. Lists are simple, smart, and flexible, so you can stay on top of what matters most to your team. Track issues, assets, routines, contacts, inventory, and more, using customizable views and smart rules and alerts to keep everyone in sync. With ready-made templates, you can quickly start lists online, on our new mobile app for iOS, and directly within Microsoft Teams. And because it's part of Microsoft 365, you can rely on enterprise-ready security and compliance. Your lists just got a whole lot smarter. Get more done with Microsoft Lists. Go to aka.ms/MSLists for more information, videos, demos, blogs, and more. That's aka.ms/MSLists. Make a list and let it flow.
Today we have Ryan Welkley and Tatiana Castillo with us. They are customer success managers currently specializing in organizational adoption and change management of Microsoft's modern work solution, specifically Microsoft Teams. Ryan and Tati take a humans first approach to helping customers navigate their digital transformation, and that's what they're here to talk about. Welcome to Sync Up, Ryan and Tati.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ankita.
So we'll quickly begin on this. We as employees, individuals, and leaders are struggling to deal with current challenges in our working environment. What is the priority challenge your customers have faced with regarding to employee engagement during the pandemic in the past year?
Yeah, so the simple answer is just employee burnout or meeting fatigue. So many of the customers I work with have schedules cluttered with meetings, some of which are meetings to prepare for other meetings. And to make matters worse, people are inviting people to meetings when they don't all need to be there. So for example, I hear from my customers all the time, they have screen fatigue. They're sitting in one place, they're not moving, lack of human interaction because we're not going into the office anymore and everyone's working remotely. That feeling of always being on, especially when we have video and we're recording meetings, these are real, and I feel it too in my day. So it's something that we're all dealing with at the moment.
Yeah, Ryan. I mean, I completely agree with you there. It's something we all deal with. And personally, in my household, we like to call it musical rooms. We play musical rooms because just all of us are on the computer or in a meeting just working, and we end up being picked up in each other's background noise and interrupting one another. And I'm the low man on the totem pole that usually has to get stuck outside in the wind and cold. But we do that in musical rooms, and everyone has their own fix right now, and it's something that we all face, like you mentioned.
Guys, on a smaller scale, for individuals and managers trying to combat fatigue with their teams and peers, what are the 2-3 things that each person can begin doing differently today from your experiences with working with your customers, working with your teams, peers, or on your own best practices that you've seen that worked for you?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it's important to prioritize employees first and empower them to really take ownership of their day and their meetings to prevent burnout. There's a lot of simple recommendations that we encourage to help reduce this burnout and the whole idea of screen fatigue or visual fatigue. And some of these are just really basic, but people forget about them. So schedule breaks in your day or take a short walk so that you can just get away from your desk. Take a break to stretch. I had a manager in the past that liked to do one-on-ones walking. So, when we were in the office together, we just go on a walk outside and have our one-on-one. Well, in today's remote world, you could still do the same thing, but just, have your headphones and, go on a walk, get outside. This obviously doesn't work for every meeting when you need to be in front of your computer, but for those meetings when you don't need to be in front of your screen, that's a good option to just change it up a bit. The other thing that I've recommended to customers is to remove that requirement for sharing video. Obviously, it's a great feature in Teams, and it really connects us when we're on video together. But sometimes, especially for people who are on video all day long, it might make sense to mix it up. And at some points, when video doesn't need to be on, maybe if it's an internal meeting, to turn the video off, just so that people don't always have that sense that they're always on video. And then I think the last thing I would say is, don't be afraid to ask people, how they're doing. We're all working and going through this difficult time right now. We're working from home. We have kids. We have pets. They can't interrupt our day and our meetings. So we're all dealing with the same thing. So it's nice just to share, stories and ask people how they're doing. Tatiana, what have you seen?
One of our teammates, Alan Bourne, did with one of our first team meetings that I was ever part of. It was after a half day that I had of training, and I had another 2-hour-long meeting for our team meeting. And Alan kicked it off with a quick 5-minute meditation session, which was incredible. It let everybody reset, reboot after a long day. It's just something that I would have never thought of because I'm not one to meditate naturally. Alan was just incredible with setting it up. He really executed. And after that, we had an incredible session where everyone was engaged, focused, contributing great content. It's one thing that you can keep on that list. Maybe incorporate that quick 5-minute meditation. Who knows? It can change the path of your meeting. So.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't agree more, Tati. I think, again, simple things, but we all forget. And so if we can start to remind each other to do these things, I've had long meetings where the presenter, had everyone get up and stretch. Those little things help. We need that little break. We need to stop staring at the screen, especially when we're sitting in front of it day after day after day. So it's important.
Yeah, get that blood moving. I love that stretching session.
Thanks, guys. I think this is the first time I'm hearing about of someone do the meditating session, and I really feel that's awesome. That's a great thing to try and really, really unique. I hope we do it too in our meeting someday. So speaking of that sense of togetherness, I have had customers tell me that they struggle with engagement during their meetings. So how do you get your customers to engage during meetings?
One thing that I really like is the features that are already in Teams, like built into Teams to help with that. And it's the raising your hand and laughing or applauding, just showing how you're feeling. We have that reaction section up at the top next to that chat window. And then we also have the together mode. So if we're all in a meeting, instead of looking at different boxes of one another and just seeing each other's face, you can set it up like you're in a conference room and show everyone sitting around a table. It's incredible. Or stadium seating. Everyone's in a spot next to each other, and it's really engaging because everyone has that same view when you're in together mode. So if Ryan's to my left on my screen and we're in together mode, I'm on his right on his screen. So it's incredible. It's a great way to just feel connected with the people around you. And then there's also some other applications within the Teams platform in general. We have TeamJoy, which allows you to poll and see how people are feeling. And there's also like a celebrations app template where you can congratulate people on success or celebrate a birthday or a work anniversary, which is incredible. You can celebrate the little things, and it makes life a lot more fun, especially during COVID, because celebrating those little victories or those birthdays or those anniversaries can really change the trajectory of your week. And I've noticed it helps a lot with our team.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Tati. And in fact, I think this is a great point, the celebrations app, or there's another thing you can do in Teams. It's a praise. It's called the praise app. It's great for managers or just colleagues, to be honest, to let people, give somebody praise who's gone above and beyond for maybe some work they've done. Since we're not in the office these days, we need to think of other ways to make sure we let people know that we're thankful for what they're doing and how they're helping and how they're contributing. And those little things go a long way. And Teams, by some of these built-in features or applications, we can do that. And I think it's really helpful to use those features because it really makes a difference.
Completely agree, Ryan. And now that you mentioned it, there's another thing that Sarah did with me earlier this week. She just wanted to catch up over coffee, and the new Starbucks app in the Teams platform was perfect for it. We were able to grab coffee, and she had actually sent me a little $5 gift card so that we could get coffee and then have our little meeting over Teams. And it was just a fun sync up, just seeing how we're doing, how I'm doing as onboarding in the role and becoming a CSM. Little things like that where you kind of set work aside for a little bit and really invest in how people are doing. Teams is a great platform, and it really helps you invest in the people around you.
These are great human first examples. I mean, and it's amazing to know that it's just not knowledge that you guys are imparting. You guys are actually implementing it, seeing the benefits and sharing it with the customers, with our listeners here. It's amazing. Thank you both. Thank you, Ryan and Tati, for joining us today. It was an amazing session, and I'm really, really hopeful that this is beneficial for all our listeners. And to all our listeners, all the resources that can help you learn more about everything that we discussed today would be added in the podcast show notes. So do check it out, and all the best. Thank you again to our guest, Corey Kincaid, for sharing these amazing insights to help our customers through their journey of digital transformation. To learn more about OneDrive and the latest developments, please follow our tech community blog at aka.ms/OneDrive/blog.
And please do send us your questions and feedback. You can reach us on Twitter at OneDrive, at Jasmo, and at Ankita_Kirti21. And definitely visit our show page for links, resources, and more at aka.ms/syncup. That's SYNCUP. Subscribe to and follow the show wherever you get your podcasts. If you enjoy SyncUp, tell others what you've learned from the show. Word of mouth is still the very best way for people to learn about new podcasts and new information. And if you're curious about other cool shows by Microsoft, go to aka.ms/Microsoft/podcasts. There's something for everyone.
Thank you for listening to Sync Up, a show about OneDrive. We are your hosts, Ankita Kirti and Jason Moore. We'll catch up with you next month.
Woo!